Hey friends, we're back here with American Miscellany, published in 1865, and I'd like to at least start our next essay, essay number 155, called Curiosities of Art. However, I was kind of paging ahead, and this is a pretty long essay, but it has these little kind of subcategories here. So I'm just going to go ahead and split this essay up into its little subcategories so we're not kind of overburdened by an hour-long essay here. These essays are of random length, random authors, random subjects, but they all are from 1865. This book was published in 1865 by Robert Sears. It's called American Miscellany. Our last essay was essay 154 called The Boston Custom House. Very interesting. Let's go a little deeper here with essay 155, Curiosities of Art. All right, page 398. Curiosities of Art. The interest excited by any product of ingenuity or skill must ever be comparative. The musket of the sailor is a matter of wonder to the savage, the steam vessel a marvel to the Chinese, and the electric telegraph a curiosity to all. 500 years ago, our forefathers would have been as much struck as the South Sea Islander with the feats of the musket. 40 years ago, steamboats were subjects of wonder to our countrymen, and 10 years hence we shall be as familiar with electric telegraphs as we are now with spinning machines, gas light, locomotives, and steam frigates, all of which were marvels and curiosities in their day. Since invention is thus ever active and progressive, we can regard as permanent curiosities of art only such products as exhibit a vastitude or boldness of design, great ingenuity and perseverance in accomplishment, intricacy and complication of parts combined with harmony of execution, minuteness of proportions with delicacy of finish, and simulation of living agency by inanimate mechanism. The earliest efforts of mechanical ingenuity in Europe were chiefly directed toward the construction of clocks, watches, and automata. In all these, weights and springs were the prime movers, and the skill of the mechanic was expended in rendering the movements of his work as numerous and complicated as possible. They had no idea of applying their art to the great manufacturing operations so characteristic of the present age. Not that they were unskilful workmen, but that they were ignorant of that agency which has developed our steam engine, spinning mills, printing presses, and other machinery. Steam force was to them unknown. Their sole great moving power was falling water, a power attainable only in a limited degree, and when attainable, not often in a situation to be available. It was thus that ingenious workmen so frequently devoted a lifetime to the construction of some piece of mechanism, which, after all, was only valuable as an amusing curiosity. All right, friends, so what we're going to do is we're going to read this first little category here under our main title, Curiosities of Art. So here in our part one, we're going to learn about speaking machines. All right, we're still here on page 398. Part one of Curiosities of Art, Speaking Machines. From the time that the statues of Memnon emitted their mystical tones on the banks of the Nile, and the oracular responses were delivered at Delphi through the period when a speaking head was exhibited by the Pope, toward the end of the 10th century, and others afterward by Roger Bacon and Albertus Magnus. Various surprising efforts have been made to produce a machine capable of articulating human words and sentences. Did I read that right? That that there was a speaking head exhibited by the Pope in the 10th century? Alrighty. The things you learn. Roger Bacon made talking heads. Alright, so various surprising efforts have been made to produce a machine capable of articulating human words and sentences. The record left us concerning the Egyptian statues is by far too scanty to afford a basis even for a probable conjecture, and with respect to the oracle at Delphi, the cave of Trophonius, and the like, we have every reason to suppose that the sounds emitted were merely those of some confederate, rendering more surprising by calling in the aid of acoustic principles in the construction of the oracular temple. Again, the speaking instruments of the Middle Ages were simple combinations of pipes and stops, concealed by an external semblance of human head, and capable of uttering only a few simple syllables. It is but recently that ingenuity cited by the numerous mechanical facilities of It is but recently that ingenuity, cited by the numerous mechanical facilities of the present day, has been able to complete a machine capable of simulating the human voice in a tolerable manner. Of the 3 or 4 which have been constructed during the present century, we shall only shortly advert to that of Faber, which created considerable sensation 4 or 5 years ago. It is thus described by a German correspondent of the Athenaeum. A German correspondent of the Athenaeum. You are aware that the attempts of Cagnard, Latour, Biot, Muller, and Steinle to produce articulate sounds, or even to imitate the human voice, have not been very successful. In fact, our knowledge of the physiology of the larynx and its appendices have been so limited that we have not even an explanation of the mode in which the falsetto is produced. Mr. Faber's instrument solves the difficulties. I can only give you a very imperfect idea of the instrument. To understand the mechanism perfectly, it would be necessary to take it to pieces, and the dissection naturally is not shown the visitor, less from a wish to conceal anything than from the time and labor necessary for such a purpose. The machine consists of a pair of bellows, at present only worked by a pedal similar to that of an organ, of a quatshuk imitation. I have no idea what that word is. Cautchouc. Quatshuk. Imitation of the larynx, tongue, nostrils, and a set of keys by which the springs are brought into action. The rapidity of utterance depends, of course, on the rapidity by which the keys are played, and though my own attempts to make the instrument speak sounded rather ludicrous, Mr. Faber was most successful. There is no doubt that the machine may be more improved, and more especially that the timbre of the voice may be agreeably modified. The weather naturally affects the tension of the india rubber, and although Mr. Faber can raise the voice or depress it, and can lay a stress upon a particular syllable or a word, still one cannot avoid feeling that there is need for improvement. This is even more evident when the instrument is made to sing. But when we remember what difficulty many people have to regulate their own choral vocals, their own chore vocalis, it is not surprising that Mr. Faber has not yet succeeded in giving us an instrument Catalani or La Blanche. Faber is a native of Freiburg in the Grand Duchy of Baden. He was formerly attached to the observatory at Vienna, but owing to an affection of the eyes, was obliged to retire upon a small pension. He then devoted himself to the study of anatomy, and now offers the results of his investigations and their application to mechanics, to the world of science.